Welcome to our deep dive. Today we're looking at a few really distinct topics, starting with the echoes of World War II, 80 years after VE Day. It's quite striking how differently that victory is remembered, especially comparing Russia and the West.
It really is. And, it starts with the dates themselves, doesn't it? May 8th versus May 9th. That second surrender in Berlin, insisted upon by Stalin, well, it wasn't just symbolic. It kind of cemented these two parallel narratives right from the beginning.
Yeah, one focused on the broader Allied effort, the other really centered on the Soviet Union's enormous role and, frankly, staggering losses.
Absolutely. We're talking about 26 million casualties.
Yeah.
That figure alone, you can understand why it forms the absolute core of the Russian Great Patriotic War narrative. They see their contribution as pivotal and often feel it's downplayed in Western accounts.
And there are historical points of tension there, too, aren't there? Things like the delay in opening the second front, which the Soviets felt left them bearing the brunt for too long.
Exactly. And then there's the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. While it's part of the history, its consequences, like the division and brutal occupation of Poland, losing maybe 20% of its population, sometimes gets less prominence in that specific Great Patriotic War story. It's complex.
And we see that divergence playing out even now in the commemorations. Moscow's Victory Day parades have become these huge displays of military might, especially, in the context of the current war in Ukraine.
Very different from the more somber, reflective VE Day events you typically see in Western Europe, which focus more on remembrance and increasingly the fragility of peace, given the current geopolitical climate.
It makes you think about the post-war structure, too. The Marshall Plan, Nader Truman called them two halves of the same walnut, right? Aimed at rebuilding and ensuring security in Western Europe.
Yes, and for a long time, that framework held. But recently, well, with challenges to NATO, with Russia's actions, there's a definite shift. European nations are rearming. There's a growing sense of insecurity that hasn't been felt for decades.
And it's worth noting, as one of our sources points out, that sometimes these Western commemorations can feel a bit insular. They might not fully acknowledge the huge sacrifices made by people across the Commonwealth, from Africa, Asia, the Caribbean.
That's a really important point.
Oh.
Whose contributions get highlighted and whose remain less visible is critical to understanding the full picture of a truly global war.
Okay, let's shift focus completely now to public health challenges in India. One thing that jumped out is this common idea of public health being just sort of a branch of medicine.
Right, and that's a fundamental misunderstanding. Public health is so much broader. It's really interdisciplinary. You've got medical science, sure, but also engineering, social sciences, communication, problem solving.
Yeah.
It's about tackling health issues at a population level, often looking at root causes.
The way it's governed in India sounds quite complex, too. It's technically a state subject under the Constitution, but responsibilities seem spread out.
That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
While states have primary responsibility, the union government handles things like drug safety, and then you have areas like pollution control or quarantine on a concurrent list where both can act. It's a bit of a patchwork, a legacy, really, of fitting a British unitary system onto India's federal structure.
Which can lead to, well, a lack of coordination.
Precisely. The example given is striking. The Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, fighting tobacco cancers, while the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, is actually working on improving tobacco yields. It highlights that lack of synergy.
And this fragmentation extends to how public health professionals are trained.
Yeah, the Master of Public Health, or MPH programs, seem quite inconsistent across the country. Different eligibility criteria, varying curricula.
Yeah.
It's not standardized.
So what gets missed?
Well, often crucial areas like public health engineering or nutrition beyond just the basics, behavioral sciences, even health technology assessment, they might be glossed over or omitted entirely. It makes you question how comprehensive a 2-year program can realistically be.
And then graduates face challenges actually finding roles within the system.
Exactly. There's this systemic invisibility because there aren't really structured public health cadres in government. Their skills exist, but the pathways to apply them effectively aren't always there.
Meaning the system often ends up being reactive rather than proactive.
That seems to be the case. Without that dedicated, technically equipped workforce fully integrated, it's hard to move beyond just responding to crises as they happen.
Okay, let's turn to our next source, which zooms in on the lived experiences of thalassaemia patients, specifically in Karnataka. The personal stories really drive home the constant challenges.
They really do. You hear about Gaurama, Tarun, Santosh, Ubina Rusar. It's a lifelong reality of needing regular blood transfusions and crucially, iron chelation therapy to manage the iron overload from those transfusions. It's relentless and expensive.
And there were quite a few patients, around 10,000 estimated in Karnataka alone, but no official government registry.
Yeah, that lack of a central registry makes it harder to track needs, allocate resources effectively, and really understand the scale of the issue statewide.
There are support systems, like the state blood cell and the integrated centers for hemoglobinopathies and hemophilia, providing free transfusions, which is vital. But access to the right iron chelation drugs seems patchy.
That's a major concern because those transfusions save lives, but they cause iron to build up, damaging organs. Chelation therapy removes that excess iron. But the issue highlighted is the short supply of preferred drugs and the reliance on generics due to tender processes. Patients report concerns about effectiveness and side effects with some alternatives.
And the cost is prohibitive for many, right? Effective drugs costing something like $20,000 a month.
Yes, the Thalassaemia and Sickle Cell Society of Bengaluru points that out. It's a huge financial burden, often falling on families who are already struggling. And on top of that, there's often a social stigma associated with inherited disorders like this.
Which can affect everything, personal relationships, job prospects.
Absolutely. Now, the only potential permanent cure is a bone marrow transplant, or BMT. It's technically covered under the Ayushman Bharat Health Scheme, but apparently that's not fully operational yet for this specific need in Karnataka. Plus, finding a matched donor is a huge hurdle.
And nonprofits are trying to fill the gap.
Yes, organizations like Sankal BMJH and DKMS Foundation India are doing crucial work providing free BMTs. But the challenge remains finding compatible stem cell donors, especially given India's huge genetic diversity.
The source also mentions the link to consanguineous marriages, which are more common in some communities and increase the risk. Karnataka has a high rate according to national surveys.
Right, which really underlines the importance of things like carrier screening, prenatal testing, genetic counseling, and just general public awareness to help prevent new cases and support affected families.
Okay, finally, let's explore this idea of academic freedom. The source uses a film reference, Satyajit Ray's Hirak Rajar Deshe, and contrasts recent events at U.S. universities like Columbia and Harvard.
It's a concept with deep roots. Pranab Mukherjee, in a speech, even invoked ancient Indian centers of learning like Nalanda and Taxila, emphasizing that need for an atmosphere free from prejudice, where ideas can be debated. It's not just a modern Western idea.
So the core principle is about the freedom to teach and learn without outside interference, and also the freedom for academics to critique society.
That's the general understanding, yes. Following the Humboldtian model from Germany, it's about freedom of scientific inquiry and uniting research and teaching. Keith Whittington argues it's essential for universities genuinely committed to seeking truth.
But there are pressures today that complicate this, like the publish or perish culture.
Definitely. Tenure, promotions, funding, university rankings, they're all increasingly tied to publication records. This can sometimes incentivize safer, quicker research over potentially groundbreaking but slower, more challenging work.
The Peter Higgs example is quite telling, a Nobel laureate feeling like he wasn't productive enough by current standards.
It really highlights the potential tension between administrative metrics and genuine intellectual exploration. And it's important to distinguish academic freedom from general freedom of speech.
How so?
Well, academic freedom operates within the norms of scholarly disciplines. You need academic credentials and evidence to make certain claims within a university setting. You can't just say, teach flat earth geology and claim academic freedom. It's tied to expertise and disciplinary standards.
And it's also shaped by the broader political climate.
Absolutely. Academic freedom isn't absolute. Its boundaries are always influenced by the surrounding society and political system. We saw extreme examples in the Soviet Union where entire fields like sociology or genetics were banned for ideological reasons.
So it's like a protective umbrella, but not a guaranteed force field. It exists within and is shaped by its context.
Exactly. It provides crucial space for inquiry and critique, but it's a space that often needs defending and is subject to various pressures, both internal and external.
We've covered a lot today, from the shifting memories of a world war and the structural issues in India's public health system, to the daily struggles of thalassemia patients and the complex nature of academic freedom. 4 very different windows onto our contemporary world.
They really highlight the interplay between history, societal structures, individual well-being, and the pursuit of knowledge, don't they?
They do. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Considering these diverse perspectives, how do we actually ensure that the lessons of the past, the needs of the present, And freedom to inquire truly inform a more equitable and, well, more enlightened future for everyone. Something to think about.